A long time ago, in a land very far away from where you are sitting, there was an enormous, gloomy castle. It was built into the earth of a very steep and rocky mountain on one side of a valley. This great, gloomy castle frowned down on the poor village which lay beneath it. To the villagers the castle looked very unfriendly, sort of like a hawk in a tree glaring down on a mouse in the grass. In the castle there lived a very rich prince. He was not the charming type of prince you hear about in the other tales you read. The prince was handsome, that is true. He was tall and straight and as strong as 5 other men. He was even brave at times. But he was as gloomy and as unfriendly as his castle. He never smiled, this prince. He never spoke kindly to anyone. He never waved at his subjects when riding past them on his beautiful white horse. He was a complete and utter sourpuss. The reason the prince was so grumpy and unfriendly was because even with all his wealth he was discontent. All his life the prince could have anything and everything that he wanted. All he had to do was say the word. For example, when the prince wanted a wife, he told his general so at breakfast time. By supper time, he was married and had already left for his honeymoon. Once the prince wanted a menagerie of tropical birds. He told the duke so before morning prayers. The prince sulked for the whole hour he had to spend in the palace chapel that morning. But when he came out of the chapel, his room was filled with birds of the wildest and most glorious colours you have ever imagined. Another time the prince wanted a tiger. He told the duchess this before he went to bed. When he woke up next morning, there sat the colossal cat on the end of his bed, towering over him with great shining teeth. Yet even with all these things, the prince was not satisfied. In fact, the more the prince had, the less content he was. And the less content the prince was, the more sullen he became. Besides doing all kinds of other grumpy sorts of things, the prince began to wage expensive wars with the neighbouring kingdoms. You see, the prince had no army at his command. Therefore, he collected himself a number of ruffians and formed the company into a sort of militia. He had to pay the brigands handsomely. These grand expenses made the nobles uneasy, for they lived on the prince's wealth. The duke got an idea that if the court could somehow make the prince happy, they might stop the wars, and therefore conserve the wealth of the realm. The lords and ladies of the court tried everything to cheer the prince up. The ladies danced exceedingly gaudy dances for him. The men formed illustrious hunting parties and made sure the prince always caught something. The priests blessed him so frantically and poured so much oil on the prince that he left greasy footprints everywhere he went. It got to be that he couldn't lay on a couch or even brush past a tapestry without ruining the fabric with nasty stains. After a while the prince got so fed up with all this to-do that he clapped his whole court in the dungeon, and all the clergy too. So there he sat, day after day in his empty throne room with no one but 2 palace guards to keep him company.